Well, it's definitely another whiskey night if you're a Red Raider fan. Um, 41-27, Colorado defeated Texas Tech. And look, there's a lot to talk about with this game and the environment and everything that went on today here in Lubbock. From the big noon kickoff, which was a great turnout from Raiderland, from Texas Tech fans. The uh, the whole atmosphere was terrific. We did the Rockin' pregame radio show, a 3 hours before kickoff from 12 to 2, right there at Red River Outfitter, across the street from the Jones on University, and had Corey Carr on, Hall of Famer, Rodney Blackshear, several really good visitors and guests, and it was a great time up until Texas Tech's offensive line started getting their butts kicked, and Tech jumped out to a 13-0 lead after one. They're up 13-10 at the half, but for all the talk of and rightfully so, Colorado's quarterback Shedeur Sanders, their head coach, Coach Prime, those receivers, Travis Hunter, all the things that people usually talk about when they talk about Colorado. It was their defense that kicked Tech's butt today. It was specifically the whole defense, but the front six, front seven really did a great job against Texas Tech. And, that was the difference in the game was Tech's offensive line just got manhandled. So there were some other things to it, but this is to Raiderland. Sorry for the disappointing loss. That's college football, but cheers to y'all. So let's go into some of the stats. First off, Texas Tech had a really tough time running the ball. Colorado was selling out to stop the run. Tech hit some things in the passing game early off of that, but Taj's rushing stats early was terrible. He had 31 carries for 137 yards, a touchdown. He did break the all-time rushing record held by Byron Hansford previously, but kind of on a somber note since Tech lost. Baron Morton, first off, he was sacked 6-7 times, and Colorado really got after him. He got hit a lot, but he was inaccurate as well. He struggled a lot in this game. This is one of his worst games. He finished 24 for 40 for 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Josh Kelly was his normal, very good self, 8 catches, 106 yards. Jalen Conyers had 3 catches for 50 yards and 2 touchdowns, so a pretty good game by him. Jacob Rodriguez was amazing, to be honest. Tech did not lose because of their defense. I talked about their secondary, and they did get beat, especially on some screen game action. But, Texas Tech lost this game because their biggest problems this season is their secondary, though they played all right. Not great, but all right. And their offensive line. Their offensive line struggled mightily today. But Jacob Rodriguez had 17 total tackles, 13 solo, a sack, 1.5 tackles for loss, and 2 quarterback hurries. He did not force a turnover this week, but what a great performance by him. The dude's just, again, he's a stud. But I'm going to jump into your questions here and your comments and go ahead and talk to you all. Just dive into this. The stats were what they were. Lucas the Ghost says, what do you think Tech did the worst today? Yeah, block. They couldn't open up anything for Taj, especially early, and then they couldn't protect Barron. They just Colorado's defensive front really manhandled Tech's offensive line. So to me, that's an easy thing. Aaron Hall says, is it time to have an open quarterback competition during the bye week? Hammond can play without messing up his red shirt. Now, I think so. Now, if you're okay with Texas Tech moving on from Baron Morton almost completely, because he would almost certainly transfer, one would think, if Will Hammond, a true freshman, takes over, especially if he really shows out the rest of the year. But you're right. He has just played in a couple of games. He can play in the 2 final regular season games and then whatever bowl game Tech goes to, and still redshirt. And honestly, I'm okay with that. said no personal thoughts. I really like Baron Morton, like the person from what I know. I don't pretend to like know him, but interviewed him a bunch. Even talked to his mom before and all that. I like him. I like the Mortons. So it's not personal, but yeah, I mean, I think Will Hammond might be a more pure thrower. He might be the better option, and that's what it's about, is winning ball games. So I wouldn't have. I think there should be an open competition almost everywhere, except for a couple of key spots. Like, I don't think anybody's taking Taj's spot. I don't think anybody's taking Jacob Rodriguez's spot or Josh Kelly. So other than that, yeah. Aaron Hall says, "What's the fine if the coach at AD let it rip on the officials in the press?" Yeah, well, Joey McGuire, I was there in the post-game press conference, and his opening statement, he did rip. He basically said, "Screw it." I mean, he might as well. He basically said, "Go ahead and fine me." He complained about the refs, and I don't think Tech. I would say I know Tech didn't lose this game because of the refs, but the officiating was terrible today. For both sides, but especially for Texas Tech. That roughing the passer call in a critical moment in the game was atrocious. And then, as McGuire said, he said there was 5 missed face masks. I remember at least 3, but I'm not saying that there wasn't more than that. I remember specifically from up in the press box saying, like, 3, like one, like Taj's head almost got ripped off and they didn't call it. And I think it was a 4th down too, a 3rd or 4th down. So the officiating was terrible. I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think they were just incompetent. I mean, they couldn't even get what down it was, what time to put on the clock, communicate what was going on half the time. So it was a joke. It was a clown show from the refs. And McGuire didn't hold back in the press conference. I even asked him a follow-up, like, what feedback did you get from the refs on that roughing the passer? And he said basically they told him somebody saw Shedeur get hit in the knees, and he was like, "Who saw that?" Because it didn't happen. He hit him in the hip. So, I don't know if anything's going to come of it, but other than a fine. But at least McGuire took up for his fellows and was willing to put his money where his mouth is. And it's not my money, so I don't try and tell people what to do with their money. But that was an admirable thing he did, in my opinion. Aaron Hall said again, do you think some of those up the middle runs are bad reads by Morton? I think Tech made a concerted effort to stick with the run, stick with Taj. I don't want to be hypocritical because there's been so many times where I've been like, go to Taj. Why don't you give the ball to Taj? And so when they actually do that and they stick with him, it's hard for me to be like, well, you stuck with the run too long. You know what I mean? And also they couldn't protect Barron. So I do think Barron made some bad reads tonight. Like I said, I think this is one of his worst nights of his career. Part of that, I think, was because, he was being attacked, but also part of it was he had very poor feel in the pocket. There were some times when protection was good for a while, and he held on the ball too long. I thought he was late on some of his reads, and then he was just inaccurate at times too. That's just the truth. Ruben says, do you think Joey learned his lesson to get an experienced DB in the portal? I don't know. They definitely went for more athleticism and potential this past year in the portal. Before, like, Baskerville was an experienced guy. Braylon Lux was an experienced guy. And for the most part, especially Lux, but both those guys have worked out, have been pretty good players. The Devin Cromwell's, AJ McCarty actually was an experienced guy from the year before. He had to sit out last year. But I think he's worked out okay, but and Mo Horn, what's weird is, like, the secondary played better tonight. Now, some of those screen passes, ironically, it was a screen pass against Tech after people saying stop running screens when Tech has the ball. Colorado really executed their screen game well, and that really hurt Tech. But I do think they have some guys coming up now, but they could use 1 or 2 experienced DBs in the portal this offseason to help kind of bridge the gap so some of the young guys can develop. I give 0 FUCK or FKSs. He said, I really like one of you guys ask every member of this coaching staff what they're going to do to ensure that they don't come out totally flat after the bye week. Okay. Fubar says those uniforms today were garbage. I disagree. One thing I will say is I couldn't tell what the numbers were from up in the press box, so that was confusing. I don't mind the gray jersey as an all. You know, I wouldn't want it to be like a regular in rotation. I love the association with Pat, with Mahomes, of course. And I actually liked a lot of the red accents, especially the helmet, the way it looked with the red face mask. But you know what? I've noticed people are really torn on the uniform. Some like it, some don't, and that's fine. Frank the Tank says, do you think Tech is just not ever going to be a top-tier program? It seems like we squander every opportunity we get when the lights are bright. So I just think they're not good enough yet. I mean, to me, this was like Tech earned the right to have this game that mattered, right, and be on that in that spotlight. But once they got there against a team that's better in terms of substance than I was expecting coming into the season, I knew the flash. Shedeur Sanders is a very good quarterback, one of the best in the country. Travis Hunter's a great athlete, and the receiving core is really solid. But they're much better on defense than they have been. I know they've given us some points, and there was definitely some opportunities there, but they've gotten better throughout the season, and that defensive front's pretty good. And it looked really good against Texas Tech because that's one of your biggest weaknesses is your offensive line. And I felt like today, more than ever, it really showed what a glaring weakness where you've just been filling holes while you're waiting for some young guys to develop. So, you know, they got to get better, and they've recruited better, and they had a lot of recruits in town today. I know people are like, oh, they saw them lose, but it was a great atmosphere, and that's really a lot of the recruits care about. They don't care about the results as much. Winning does matter, but, you know, Tech's going to have a winning record. They have some notches on their belt when they're in the living rooms with these recruits, and the facilities are amazing. The stadium looks great. And so they're going to have an opportunity. And then eventually, you know, money talks, especially now more than ever. And I do believe Tech is competitive, especially in the Big 12, in terms of what they can offer some recruits. So I think that's, you know, you got to keep recruiting. You got to do a good job of developing. And then you got to have, and this is debatable. I know a lot of people don't think this, but you got to have good X's and O's. You got to have a, you know, good scheme and then be able to adjust. Some people think Tech's not close on that. Some people think they are. They got to win it to prove it. They got to win games to prove it. Matthew Hernandez says, same old, same old. We never get over the hump. I completely understand the feeling and frustration of that. Like Mighty Joe Yeager in the press box was actually like visibly upset about that, just about that fact. You know, he's just really tired of that. He wants, and I think a lot of the fan base are, and I, you know, Joe McGuire, he knows that. You know, he's no dummy, no matter what some of y'all think. He's not, and you know, he wanted to win today. I just feel like Colorado was better. I mean, they whipped. It wasn't the flash. It wasn't the rah-rah. It was they physically kicked your butt in the trenches. You know, that's what happened. So Tech's got to get better in the trenches, and they know that. David Curtin says, I'm okay with starting Hammond over Morton, but this team will never win 9-10 games with Kitley at OC. I understand how some people feel that. I don't know that. I don't believe that for a fact, but I can't sit here and dispute that either. So, you know, that's kind of where I'm at. I want to see what they can do. I want to see how much they can improve, and they got to get a better offensive line. I don't care who the offensive coordinator is. They do. Offensive line is just not good, man. Renee Rocha says, Keely needs to go. Morton hasn't improved at all. That's coaching. Time to move on from both. I mean, that's fair enough. Neil Rivers says, if Tech had made one more pass down the line of scrimmage, we win. Ha, ha, ha. Laugh out loud. Can't even throw the ball down the field on 3rd and 17. Renee Rocha says, Keely is over his head. Dude is good for 2 series. After his script is done, he is deer in the headlights. He didn't even have a script. He scripts the first play. I asked him that in a press conference, unless that's changed, which I think, because I think it was last year when I asked him. But no, he goes by what the defense is doing. It's not – he doesn't have 2 series scripts, so that's inaccurate. Maybe after the initial plan and the other team adjust, if you want to make that argument. Florida Raider says, what's Colorado's NIL budget? I have no idea. Reckham says, how about that fake punt sick play? Yeah, that did not help. That was terrible. Poor execution. Did not work. Did not help the effort. You know, it was a turning point in the game. Renee Rocha says, uniforms were fine. They would have looked spectacular if the offense could move the ball. I mean, that's funny how winning helps the uniforms look better. I give 0. FKS says difference with Colorado's screen game is they didn't run it every other play. I mean, they ran it a lot. You're right, they didn't run it every other play, but I bet they ran it, double-digit time, maybe as many as 15 times. So the difference is they have better athletes in blocking. And again, it was kind of a physical thing. Better execution. Ruben says, do you think Michael Hudson not playing is the reason Tech isn't getting 5-star recruits? No. He's been hurt for one the last couple of weeks. And Tech doesn't get a lot of 5-star recruits. That's hard to do. No. My answer is no. Debbie Elder says one team has elite athletes, one doesn't. We can't recruit. I agreed with everything except for the last line. Debbie Elder also says we are just not good. That's not. I mean, I guess a debate on what is good. I think Tech is solid in a lot of areas, but they have fatal flaws. Those fatal flaws, in my opinion, 2 of those are the 2 biggest: is the secondary and offensive line, and you are outmatched in those 2 spots for sure. Kim Coulter says, while the officiating was an embarrassment to the Big 12, I'm not going to say it cost Tech the game, as I believe Tech beat ourselves. No, I think Colorado beat you. Give Colorado credit. And you're right. The officiating was an abomination, but that is not why Tech lost this game. They lost this game again. I know it's not like a broken record, but it's that simple to me. You got your butt whipped up front. Good old-fashioned, like again, to me, I find it so interesting and the irony involved with it and all that for all the flash and attention and stuff that you hear about Colorado, it was some dogs up front on the defensive line and the linebacking core that just kicked your offensive line's butts. I mean, and their defensive coordinator did really good. I mean, he won the match with Zach Kittley, no doubt. Debbie Elder says our offensive line is horrible. Yeah, I agree with you. It's not good. It was really horrible today, especially. So I agree with you. Debbie Elder says, did you just say recruits don't care about results? Ha ha. No, I said that's not what I said. I said they definitely do care about results. I said they don't care when they come on a visit about the result of the game as much as fans seem to believe. Now, you believe what you want, but I talk to the recruits. I talk to the recruiting staffs. I talk to people who cover recruiting all over the country. So you believe what you want. I'm just answering the question. I am surprised when I interview these guys about, and then the fact that they'll commit after a loss that they've visited. Absolutely, they care about winning. Yes, I'm just saying it's not as big a deal as we would think when they visit and it's a loss. It's just not. But you believe what you want. Kim Coulter says you're absolutely dead on, JJ. Colorado's offensive line and defensive line dominate both of ours. Yep. Debbie has some more yada yada. David Vincent says supposedly Cody's going to buy a new offensive line. Yeah, we'll see. When it happens, I'll believe it. Now they got some young guys they like. So Records Micah is hurt. So sick of hearing about Micah in 2024. I'm taking Caleb, Josh, and Coy at the forefront any day. Ruben says, is Cam Dickey getting redshirted or did he play in too many games? He's played in too many games, at least 5 or 6, maybe more than that, actually. His red shirt has been burnt. James Campbell says, if Tech can't NIL offensive defensive lineman, they will not progress. John Bell says, why is it that Texas Tech never gets the ref calls? There were 5 face masks not called that Colorado committed. The ref in the pass or no call was horrible. The refs sure protected Colorado. The refs were terrible, just overall. And Tech got slighted. I think one of the things with this is you don't remember as much when your team gets the benefit of the calls. Like Tech got the benefit of some calls against Iowa State the previous week. That's not why Tech won, but that's part of it. That's part of the thought process for me is like you always remember when you got jobbed, when you got the short end of the stick more than when you got the advantageous call. Glenn N says, I have my gripes with Kittley and ultimately think we need a new offensive coordinator, but Morton clearly has a ceiling. Shaky O-line aside, the gap between him and Shedeur ain't close. I agree with all that. David Curtin says, is Hudson actually hurt or is he just hurt and sitting out and then transferring next year? I believe he's hurt, but we'll see. Reckham says they weren't even playing good man. They played dirty. They taunted. They whined. Problem is they found a way to win, and they did it via trench work. I mean, I knew Colorado was going to be a team that will let you, like, if you let them beat you, they will let you know about it as well. And, yeah, I did see some dirty play, but, I mean, that's just part of sports. Gary George says the refs kept Colorado's offense moving. The D stopped them, and then a flag would come out. Okay. There was at least one or two instances of that for sure. I give 0 FKS says our Leach lines used to be some beasts. Flipped over to check out Alabama and LSU. Their lines would make ours look like middle schoolers. What is keeping us from recruiting that or have creatine forward drips? Yeah, they've recruited better. They're younger. It takes a while. Even I asked Kitley about when are we going to see some of these young offensive linemen that y'all recruited in the previous two classes actually see the field on Saturday and make a difference. He said he really doesn't even like to start offensive linemen until their third year out of high school. And those two classes, the oldest guys are 2 years out of high school. So next year you'll start seeing some of the guys, and in a couple of years you'll see if they're still here with the transfer portal and all that. Several guys, I think. But you do need to augment with the transfer portal for sure. And, yeah, I mean, that is the difference. I mean, Tech can't compete. Even when they had Patrick Mahomes, they couldn't compete with athletes like LSU field year in and year out, like when they played in the Texas Bowl. And the most glaring part of it is overall team speed, but also just the beasts in the trenches. I mean, it is night and day, the kind of athletes, monster athletes they have. Glenn N says positive, excited about Jacoby Williams in the future. Yeah, me too. I think he's going to be really good. Ruben said, what happened to Isaiah Crawford from Post? Ain't he a sophomore now? Yeah, I believe that's right. And he's been injured a lot, trying to add on weight. He's not, I think next year will be his third year, so he's got to come on. It's usually that's the year, his third year. So we'll have to see if he can get in the lineup. Kim Coulter says, I hate when you're always right. I'm not. I'm wrong a lot, but he said, laugh out loud, much respect. Respect to you, Tim. I really appreciate you, joining in, chatting, and watching the show. Joshua Tucker says, can we agree that the ref calls set us back more than the offensive play calls? No, I don't. Than the offensive play calls. I don't know. I mean, you didn't do anything really to help your offensive line, so I would say maybe a tie there. Your actual lack of execution, just the physical part of the game, is what set Tech back the most. My opinions are not yada. Okay, yeah, they are. Luke Kinchin says Barron's going to be starting at Stephen F. Austin next year. You don't have to change your username. I know I sound awkward, but I don't mind saying cuss words, but some people get offended by it, and I get it. So, to me, I think I don't think it's that much of a problem to not cuss too much. You know what I mean? Especially people don't like F-bombs. So, out of respect for that, I try not to say that on these kind of things. Gary George says, Recomsar says, the young offensive line players can't do any worse than what we have. Also, congrats to Taj. Yeah, congrats to Taj for breaking the record. Absolutely. Yeah, I kind of feel like that too. I wonder if they're concerned about maybe them losing confidence or something like that. I don't know. Or maybe they're just not ready yet. It does take, on the offensive line specifically, some time to develop and be ready to play at this level. Reckham says, my biggest frustration is this. Another big atmosphere, another massive attention game, another big hype game, another Mahomes-involved game, and we dropped the ball. So frustrating. I mean, everything you said was right on. The fact that you got to this, you're in the second week of November and you're playing a meaningful game was good. That's a step in the right direction. But the fact that you had that opportunity and you dropped the ball, like you said, I mean, it's frustrating. I understand. I'm right there with you. I get it, man. Michael F. says, I think one problem with running the ball was a lack of diversity in running plays. All we run is a zone read, never anything outside with the exception of the TD. Yeah, it did feel very, yeah. I mean, I agree with that too. There wasn't a lot of imagination there with that. No, that's all on me, bro. Says, I give 0 FKS. It's all good. Whatever. Gary George says Colorado's freshman walk-on center seemed to do okay. Yeah, I know. That's good for him, and good for Colorado to be able to scheme around and do that, and for him to still be effective and to find him and all those things. That is that's impressive, and it does make you kind of maybe reconsider or want to reconsider the thought on playing some of the younger offensive linemen. All right. Let's see. Getting close to closing time here on the show. It says, Kim Coulter says, how people have forgotten how bad Tech was under Cliff and Matt. We're moving in the right direction. Yeah, man. I mean, you could just see it. They were quantifiable in terms of how many wins, posting winning record in the Big 12, going to bowl games every year, playing meaningful football in November, recruiting rankings, which are done not by me, but by national people who don't have a dog in the fight in terms of like they don't care about Texas Tech. It's just this was, the recruiting rankings. So, yeah, there are quantifiable a lot of things that you could point to that show that Tech's program's in much better shape than it was prior to Joey McGuire. And you know what? And this is unpopular. I still like Matt Wells. I consider him a friend of mine. Him and I went through some tough things in our personal lives, but we were there for each other and our faith and all that. And like when Kansas State, I think when they beat Colorado, I DM'd him. Congratulations. They had the game-winning drive and all that. And, he hit me back. And, we still, every once in a while, we'll check in. We're both pretty busy, but that doesn't change the fact that I know it was time for him to go for a number of reasons, even though he did improve the roster, believe it or not, from where Kingsbury left it. And Kingsbury did some good things on offense. And if nothing else, he brought in Patrick Mahomes, which has been really good for the program. But no, McGuire's got this in the level of investment from alumni and big-time donors and all that. It's on another level to what it was. Tech is going the right direction. Is it going there fast enough? Does that mean that they shouldn't tweak things and make changes? I'm not saying that everything should just stay the same, but in terms of McGuire, Blanchard, the core of the staff in the program, it needs to stay intact. All right. Oh, what else we have? Gary George says, why did they not go back to the 3-set backfield with the tight ends when down by the end zone? I don't know. That seemed like that was specific to North Texas. What Kitley said was that he saw that on tape before, but it looks like it seems like it could work against other people. I wish they would do it. Go back to it, like he said. Aaron Hall says they're also playing a true freshman at left tackle. Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's worked for them. Now, Shadur Sanders makes a lot of the mistakes by the offensive lineman. Like, the offensive line is still not great. But he erases a lot of those mistakes with his elusiveness. And his pocket presence and Barron Morton's, there couldn't be a bigger difference. I mean, it's so much better than Barron's. I mean, that's just the truth. 2 top 5 picks we lost to, not as bad as the loss from TCU and Baylor. Kim Coulter says 8 wins, 7 wins, maybe 9 this year. We'll be better. Leach won 84 games in 10 years. Joey's on the same pace. Tis but a scratch. So when does Kirby start getting some heat? I mean, that's a good question. Aaron Hall says, is Jacob Rodriguez in contention for Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year? I believe he will win his 3rd Player of the Week this week. I may have missed one. I mean, he should be. I think Tech would have to be higher in the standings. And those kind of awards usually go to players on one of the top 2 or 3 teams. So he should be all Big 12 for sure, in my opinion. Ruben says, wasn't Wells the guy who turned away Conyers' early commit Yeah, the story about that has been kind of blown out of proportion and sensationalized. But he just basically said, I want you to make sure that you want to be at Texas Tech. And Conyers did kind of switch around his commits from place to place. But, to me, that's not worth arguing about semantics. Preston Law says, why do we constantly try to establish the run 11 personnel and non-run heavy set? Where is our 23 personnel gone? Well, they've used tonight. I actually noticed they used a lot of not 23 personnel, but 12 personnel. I mean, they had a lot of tight ends out there. They did. So and it didn't work. It didn't matter. CJ Stark says O-line was unbearable to watch. Yes, and I do think that was obviously, I've said it several times, I do think that was the difference in the game. I really appreciate we've gone 30 minutes. I appreciate everybody being here, chatting, watching this live stream. Like I said, win or lose, we'll be back. Next week, Tech's on a bye, so not one next week, but I will have videos on the channel and a lot, more content on Inside the Red Raiders. But for now, I want to thank y'all for watching, and until next time.